Hi everyone. In today's video, we'll be discussing the proper titration technique. The main purpose of a titration is to qualitatively determine the concentration of the unknown solution. Before the burette is used, it should always be cleaned using deionized water. Always have a label with speaker underneath your burette to ensure you don't spill any chemicals. I'm gonna fill the burette halfway with DI water and gently invert it. Make sure it spreads and cleans all your burette. Then open the stopcock to drain the DI water. After thoroughly cleaning with DI water, the next step is to rinse the burette with 5 ml of the titrant, which in our case is the unknown concentration of sodium hydroxide. This step is usually done in 3 times. Always use a small funnel to add your titrant. For this experiment, the sodium hydroxide will go in the burette and the oxalic acid will be made in the 250 volumetric flask, and the oxalic acid solution will be titrated in the Erlenmeyer flask. After thoroughly cleaning our 25 ml burette with DI water and our titrant sodium hydroxide, the next step is to fill the burette with the sodium hydroxide to the above top mark on the graduated scale. Drain out some of the solution so that the delivery tip is filled without any air bubbles and the burette is ready for the titration. Always make sure to record your starting volume, and it doesn't have to be 25 ml, but make sure you have enough titrant to finish the titration. The next step is to make our oxalic acid solution to be shared with the classroom. We are going to make the oxalic acid solution in a 250 ml volumetric flask. To do this, we are going to be adding 1.5 grams of oxalic acid to the volumetric flask. Then we will add DI water until you are near the line mark on the volumetric flask. Slowly, dropwise add your DI water until you reach the line, which will make it 250 ml of your oxalic acid, and make sure to see the meniscus at eye level. Next up, close it and gently mix. After the oxalic acid is completely dissolved, we will measure out 15 ml of oxalic acid using graduated cylinder and add it to the Erlenmeyer flask to be titrated for trial 1. Remember, we will be doing 3 trials. After measuring out 15 ml of our oxalic acid using graduated cylinder, we're going to add the 15 ml of oxalic acid into our Erlenmeyer flask, and then we're going to add 2 droplets of our indicator phenylalanine to mark the endpoint of our titration. So the main goal of this experiment is to identify the concentration of our titrant, which is our sodium hydroxide, but we're going to do this by titrating the titrite with the analyte, which is our oxalic acid. So we will be using the stopcock to control the flow of our titrant. Always make sure to go dropwise until you get a hang of it. But once you do get a hang of it, it's fine if you go 2-3 drops at a time. And the other hand should always be stirring the solution. So at this point, you can see that I'm going dropwise, and that's because I'm reaching the end point. I know this because the pink color is staying for a longer time than it was when I first started. A couple drops and we should be reaching endpoint. The endpoint looks a faint pink, and if it stays there for 5 seconds, then we've reached endpoint. So here we've reached endpoint, and you can see it disappearing too. Now that we've reached the endpoint, it is important to read how much NAOH we used. Always record the starting point, which was 0 in our case, and next up is to read how much NAOH we used using the help of our reading card. And the correct way to read a burette would be the bottom of the meniscus, and it has to be at eye level. So